welcome to the CSFL, Canadian Simulation Football League. We got the Week 1 post-game show. Oh my goodness, I'm excited for this one. It's gonna be good. Wow, what an opening weekend. It might be one of the greatest opening weekends in esports and Madden history. It is unbelievable what we got in our Week 1 opening weekend. And on that note, I want to introduce you to two owners that are going to help me break it down for you. No one knows this league better than the Rhinos and the Gators, and what a key matchup they had this week, but we'll get into that. Welcome, guys, and thank you so much for making the time and for being here.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here for sure.
Awesome. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the Bears. We're going to break down each team individually. And first off, we're going to kick it off with the Bears and the Rhinos. Give us your 2 minutes on these Bears. Clock starts now.
The Bears, here we are. Week 1, the Bears and Morris went out and did what we all thought they were going to do. You know, they're going to play a solid game. And it turned out it wasn't enough. But they still got the win, which was very impressive. But Morris with the 96.6 QBR rating, 154 yards, 1 touchdown. You know, to me, it's just not enough. I think he could have done a lot more, you know, to bring his team into better situations. Hillard chipped in there with 109 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. And, you know, that was good for Hillard. He's showing he's still being productive, even though the O-line, you know, at times struggles. He gets through the line and gets what he's got to get. And Strickland, what do you have, 47 yards for receptions or something like that? Like, that wasn't enough. I don't know where Strickland went that night. But, you know, on the defensive side, Sexton came through, 7 tackles, 1 interception, which was really, really good. I was impressed with the way the secondary was handling themselves. They were challenged at times, but they were still making plays. The interceptions, on the other hand, that could be something they could look into. They might want to check in on that. And also checking up on Cameron, making sure, you know, you got to wake somebody up when they get a concussion. But Cameron was laid out in that game, and he was the number 1 overall pick for the Bears. And I just don't know what happened to him. He just wasn't alive. He looked dead. He looked like
and it was for the Vipers.
Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Mahomes that game when he played none other than the Browns and looked like he was dead. So other than that, the Bears they're gonna look good week 2. They'll come out there swinging. Osborne had 7 tackles with that. Gordon had 1 key interception. So you know, the Bears, I'm looking forward to what's going to happen with them next. I'm not panicking on the Bears yet.
All right, that's your 10 seconds there. You got it perfectly in time, so that was awesome. Great breakdown of the Bears right there. So then we're going to move right into these Blue Jays. Let me bring this graphic up here, and we got no one better than the Gators to break down the Blue Jays game for us. So here is the Blue Jays graphic. So go ahead, take it away, Gators.
Yep, first things first. The Blue Jays last season were number 1 seed in all of the CSFL, and they came into this game and lost. That's a big deal. I had them number 1 in my power rankings, and they let me down. And who did they lose by? The Dragons. What a game. So on the Blue Jays, we got Ralph Dorsey, pardon me.
Yeah.
He had 2 touchdowns and interception. Not many quarterbacks threw interceptions this week, but we did have a few, and he was one of them. Although we did throw a pick, he only threw it 19 times, and he was 68% on those completed attempts. So that's a pretty good statistic there, and he doesn't really have much to worry about, just got to be a little bit more safer on those passes. And then you look at the running back, and he didn't have a bad game. We're talking about Blaine Higgins. Yeah. He had 102 rushing yards, 20 attempts. You know, that's like an average performance, I'd say. Yeah, 20 attempts, 5 yards a run. It's not really much to shake a stick at, but that's what you want out of a running back at least.
Yeah.
That's acceptable. But then you're looking at their wide receivers. They didn't really score a lot. They didn't score on the run. They didn't run and get in the end zone using the run game. They only had 2 passing touchdowns that whole game.
Wow.
That is devastating. Devastating. But yeah, they couldn't put together scoring runs, especially deep in the last bit of the game. And if you look back at that game, you have a chance to rewatch it. That fourth quarter, scoreless. Almost
Wow.
a whole second half was scoreless. Only two touchdowns were scored in that second half, one by each team. But the biggest story of that Blue Jays game was that last drive they had a chance to put it in the bag. They only lost by 6 points. They had the ball. They had the right play call. Blaine Higgins in the end of the end zone, the back of the end zone, hit him in the chest, in the hands, and the guy drops in the back of the end zone. Blaine Higgins, game-winning catch, dropped, and that's what did it. That's what, like, everything fall apart.
Wow.
So that's what I have to say about the Blue Jays.
And that's it?
On their offense, we're just.
That's your 2 minutes.
How much time we got left?
Yeah, your 2 minutes is up now, and that's a great point on the Blue Jays. And that the Blue Jays, you're absolutely right. They ended up finishing with 7th in the league for rushing yards. So now let's move right into the Cobras. Let me bring up the Cobras graphic here.
Bring it up.
And these Cobras,
the Cobras need to hear this.
All right, here we are. I'm going to break it down for you here. So let's start this clock. Boom. Cobras. They finished with the 8th ranked offense, struggled on offense to run the ball, finishing with the last. We have never seen a 10 before because there was 8 teams. Now there's 10 teams, and guess what? The Cobras got the 10th ranked rushing offense with 44 yards as a team. Not as just one running back. A team rush was for 44 yards, and guess what? The fullback broke a 16-yard run. What does that tell you? Also, the defense for the Cobras was able to step up in the fourth quarter. They actually locked down and got a lot better. Vontrell Jean, the rookie, outside linebacker, we may have questioned the getting him in the first round, but it looks like the Cobras saw something when they interviewed this guy, and they saw something in this guy that is like one of the best, because this guy came out the gate with a sack, 7 tackles, and literally shut down Grant Williams in the entire fourth quarter and holding them to 2 field goals. The offense was not able to capitalize. Actually, you know who? The Ron struggled so much to pass it. His passing rating was under 80 passer rating. And not only was his QBR under 80, but he couldn't throw it at all, that he had to run the ball in because he thought running the ball in was going to be more successful than throwing it. So he did a quarterback sneak and ran the ball in because of how much they were struggling on throwing the ball. They also threw an interception, so Ron Simmons looked pedestrian. But what can they do to turn it around? They need to get this ball rolling on offense for the running game, because Charles Hackett is really struggling. The Axeman looks like a dull knife right now. And maybe, hey, Sammy Malone, he looking all right now after that game. And also, Ron Simmons, he's going to bounce back. And that's my time. My 2 minutes are up. But I believe that the Cobras are going to bounce back and have a really good bounce back in week 2. But yeah, that week 1 was tough because they had chances in the fourth quarter. But now let's move down to the Dragons, and let me bring up the Dragons graphic here. So here is the Dragons, and we're going to let the Gators take the microphone here, and let's give your 2 minutes. Start now on the Dragons.
This game, I already covered somewhat of it with the Blue Jays, but this game was one of the most surprising games of the week for me. Like, as I said earlier, number 1 seed in my opinion, or number 1 in the power rankings, going against my number 7 ranked. So this game really surprised me, but it all had to do with the great play calling. I like to remind you again, there's no scoring in the fourth quarter in that game, and this is what did it for them. The run game. The run game, they owned the clock. They led in the first half, and they didn't let go on the defense. The defense didn't really have that big of a showing, but they did have an interception. They had an interception with the middle linebacker. I think his name's Darnell, not sure, but
Darnell
his
Phillips.
last name is Phillips, and he did come out, Darnell Phillips, and he did come out with an interception that game. But the whole story of that game was all about that run. 200 yards, 1 touchdown, 25 attempts. He had 8 yards at a rush average. So that's pretty darn good. And thank goodness Perkins, even though he didn't have a lot of catches, he did end up leaving with a touchdown. So that was pretty good for him. Less than 50 yards receiving. Like, geez, we're talking about Perkins here. Pill popping Perkins. We're usually him running up and down the field. No problem. Not this game. Let's see what we got here.
I'd say the Blue Jays definitely slowed them down.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely slowed them down.
Like
that rushing,
vertically.
Holy moly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then again, they hold off the Blue Jays from even having the ball. They ran almost every down. They had like 25 attempts, which I think is the most this week. No, that's not the most this week. The most this week was 30 attempts.
Wow.
Check that out. But he definitely did well every time he had the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. Yeah, R.J. Barber definitely took him to the barber shop. Absolutely, 5 seconds left, and that's the good say on the Dragons. But man, their rookie Grant Hale, all will hail to Grant Hale. That forced fumble, and those plays that he was making, I swear they had to pick someone they wanted to pick on, and they picked on Darnell Phillips, and he made them pay because they couldn't go to the other linebackers. Okay, so now let's move on to the. Go ahead.
One more point.
Yeah, go ahead while I bring up the Gators graphic.
They let the game. They were within, like I said, like with the Blue Jays, they were still within 6. The Blue Jays still had a chance. So the Dragons did give them a chance to come back. Even though they powered down, tried to do the run game, clock ownership, they still had a chance to finish it.
I know, exactly. So what does that say? So
here's
the 2-minute clock now on the Gators. I'm going to break down the Gators. The clock has started, and man, this is a big game and a lot to say because they scored 44 points, and I know that, the Rhinos might want to take a drink right now, but that was an unbelievable performance by the Gators, scoring 44 points, which was the most points in the week. They finished first in offense, scoring with a total of 613 total team yards, which was first in the league and ended up winning Coach of the Week for it. So the Gators absolutely had a phenomenal week, but they did not win easily. They had to show their whole arsenal. They had to bring out all the tricks. They basically treated this like a playoff game, and they kind of had to show their cards because they knew how big of a game this was. So now we got to see what the Gators could do, but also they did not win definitively. Okay, I'm not going to say that the Gators beat the Rhinos dominantly. They didn't even dominate the whole game. Really, they just were one step ahead of them, and I want to say that the Rhinos actually may have hurt themselves by the turnover and not be able to come back. But the Gators, focusing on them, their defense finished 8th, which is third or second last, so they let up a ton of freaking points. They let up 170 yards on the ground, which was the second most, and 170 yards to Mark Marshall. He was looking like he was going against the practice squad, and I'm telling you, the Gators are way better than that. So the Gators really let up a lot on the ground, and a lot in the air, over 300 yards in the air, finishing at 7th. But they did tie in getting a second for a turnover, and that a turnover, which tied them for second in the league for turnovers, was the difference maker in that game. But again, my time is up. But Matt Davis finishing with only 90 yards, or a team total rushing of 90 yards, is also 8th. So look for the Gators to bounce back in not only on defense but in the running game. Okay, and now let's go and break down the Piranhas, and we're going to have Luke, or the Rhinos, break down the Piranhas for us, and the clock starts now for the Piranhas. Go ahead, Rhinos.
All right, well, one thing I got to say about the Piranhas right now, no matter what anybody else has to say, to me, if I could redo my power rankings, I would. The Piranhas right now, they look just scary good. They look scary good. every team has their ups and downs, but for right now, Alonzo Graham is shaping up to be a great quarterback in the CSFL. I mean, he's making right reads, he's going through his progression, he's doing everything he's supposed to do. He's hitting the receivers a lot with a lot of good passes, dime buckets right in there. So other than that, Preston is emerging as well. He had 7 receptions in the last game for 177 yards, 25.2 yards average, and 2 touchdowns. Now that right there is a good game for that guy. That's some really good stats. Watson chipped in another 100-yard game with 7 receptions. So they both had 7 receptions.
Wow.
As you can see, Alonzo Graham is spreading the ball out evenly, which could be helping, to the overall juice and flow of the offense. So with that being said, Watson chipped in with 3 touchdowns. So Preston and Watson to combine 5 touchdowns from 2 receivers.
Wow.
What else is left to be said? They are clicking on all cylinders. They haven't really shown me any signs of weakness. They're that team that kind of just, they're like, they find a way. They find a way, whether it's game plan or on the field, they get it done. And just by the last game alone, with those 3 players, on their team showing out, pretty much the 3 best players, if you ask me, the Piranhas are looking to have a deep CSFL run again, looks like, in 2021.
Yeah, and there's your time, and you finished just in time for the 2 minutes, and I couldn't agree more. And Willie Wiggles, Willie Burnside, has absolutely had a phenomenal game as well.
Burn your backside, forgot about your buddy, but
Hey.
yeah, he had a good game too.
He had damn right he did.
185 yards he
The
had.
Piranhas are biting.
Yeah.
8 yards average.
The Piranhas are
yeah.
biting, so that is definitely for sure. So what we'll do now is we're going to move right into the next one, and we're going right into the Rhinos, and I'm going to start the clock here. So boom.
Now, before you begin, I just wanted to mention
Okay, I'll
something
pause
I forgot
the
about the Dragons.
I'll pause the clock. Go ahead.
Just wanted a little tidbit while you get that prepared. 13 attempts passing for Brendan Platt. I just wanted to mention that. He was 53%. He only threw 7 completed passes. We're talking about the Dragons.
Yeah,
I just wanted to put that out.
and he
there.
only had 100 yards passing,
huge.
107 yards passing. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
And
geez,
still
man,
won.
don't forget
And still
about that.
won. And still won. Okay, so
Still won.
the 2 minute clock has started. We're talking about the Rhinos. Boom. Here it is. The good, the bad, the ugly. The Rhinos, they are phenomenal. And why are we so disappointed, and why are we so in shock that they lost? Because we had such big expectations for them, because we think so highly of them. They finished still with the 3rd best offense with 488 yards. They were rolling on offense. They had over 300 passing, 170 on the ground, finishing 3rd best out of 10 teams for on the ground. And the only reason they finished 3rd is because RJ Barber had 200 freaking yards, because he would have pretty much finished 1st or 2nd. So they also finished 2nd for points with 41 points, which was the 2nd most in the league, and still lost the ball game. They were really close to winning and still lost by 3, and turned the ball over and had a couple blown coverages where literally the defensive back just stopped running and got sucked into the play action. All the credit to the Gators. Phenomenal game plan that they came out attacking Sellers, and Sellers, guess what, got traded after that, and I don't blame them for that. But Shane Clemens had Rhino blood painted on his doorway, and he was coming for them, and they were successful. So they were able to break away on a few plays there, which was the difference in the game, because they only lost by 3. But now let's talk about that defense. The last ranked defense, 10th overall. They 553 yards. They did finish with the 3rd best rushing defense with 90 only 90 yards, which was the 3rd best. Keeping a team a total under 100 yards in this league is actually pretty impressive on the ground. But in my opinion, those numbers are a little deceiving, because they let up 463 yards in the air, so they didn't really need to throw it. Also, that one turnover was a backbreaker, but look for the Rhinos to bounce back big against these Bears, and because I don't think the Bears are going to get away with one like they got away with one this week. But let's just go from there. So now let's walk right into the Vipers. Okay, so the time is up. Let's go right into the Vipers.
Actually, horns this way for a rhino.
Yeah.
I'm a deer.
I'm a deer. Yo, so so we got the Rhinos here who are going to break down the Vipers for us. So go ahead, Rhinos. 2 minutes have started now.
All right, so the Vipers. Let's go. Should we talk about the picks or should we talk about Clemens? Should we talk about Albright? Let's just start with Phil Clemens. All right, Mr. Phil Clemens. Crickets. We don't know. I don't know. Maybe he was busy. Maybe he was quarantining, but we didn't see him. What did he have here, man? Clemens. I mean, talk about a bad game. They 84 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
Clemens, what? I don't get it. If Clemens does not move the ball, the Vipers don't win. That's just the way I see it. They had a bad game, 14 attempts. So it's not like Clemens didn't get the ball. 14 attempts. That's an average, I would say. But I mean, 84 yards. It's not going to cut the mustard. You know, when the tight end is the best receiver of the day, there's a problem. There's a problem. Where's everyone? Where are the Vipers? So yeah, they didn't have a good game. I mean, the Vipers are a running team. They're a running team. They don't want to get away from what they do. Give the ball to Clemens. Let him eat. The boys got to eat. All right. As long as Clemens is running at an average at least 7 yards per carry, the Vipers tend to win, right? So, you know, to see the Bears shut them down like that is pretty interesting. Pretty interesting because I thought the Vipers have a pretty stout offense. Derek Albright might need to start looking, get on the phone with the agent over there because he's looking a little shaky. I don't know what's his problem, what's his deal, but they need to rely on Clemens. So I think the Vipers, if they stick to their game plan, the next game, I'm not sure who they play, but I guarantee you Clemens will get back on the horse and they'll do the right thing, like Spike Lee, and just give Mr. Clemens the ball.
Okay, and that's the time for the Vipers. And just to add to your point that they are going on the road after their home loss. They're now going on the road to play the Blue Jays, who guess what are also 0-1. So the Vipers or the Blue Jays are going to start the season 0-2, which might be the biggest story of the season so far. They are also playing the Friday night primetime game, so we're going to know right away who goes 0-2. And also to your point about Phil Clemens, because you basically spent the whole thing talking about Phil Clemens. Hey, shout outs to the Vipers, man. Like, I feel so bad for the Keegan, man. And honestly, he knows damn right. He knows everything you're saying. He knows he needs to give it to Phil Clemens. Like, he's well aware of that. But he also finishes with the first overall defense, which you didn't talk about, because their first overall defense really, really kept them in that game, and they still almost won, turning the ball over 4 times. So that was the only point I wanted to make there. Now let's move into the Werewolves, and the Gators are going to take care of the Werewolves for us. Let's start the timer. Boom, and the timer is started. Go ahead, Gators. We got the Werewolves.
Great game. It was a great game for both the Werewolves and the Piranhas. That was a good matchup they had. They went back and forth. It looked to me in the beginning of the half that the Werewolves were actually going, like they were owning the clock, and they were having their way in the game. But they let the Piranhas get too close. So the Barnett had 4 touchdowns and threw an interception. He was 66% in the air. And then their running back, they had 143 yards, 30 attempts, and I believe that's the most attempts from a running back this in the first week.
Wow.
He's 4.7 yards average, which is not as high as the rest of the league, but he still got the 143 yards, and it looks like it's part of their game plan. So that's something I'm going to be looking for from the Werewolves a lot, is their running game. So that's something that's in my mind, seeing how the Gators are going to be facing the Werewolves coming next week.
Wow.
Their wide receivers, they had a lot of wide receivers touch the ball. This is actually pretty, like they very much diversified the ball in the air. They got Atkinson's with a touchdown. They got Spence with 2 touchdowns. They even got Littman with a touchdown. And guess what? they have a fourth wide receiver. I think he's rated 72. He's the worst wide receiver that went on the field, and he still came away with two catches. So that's phenomenal. That is phenomenal. Okay, but then the game was all about turnovers. They did the defense for the werewolves. They did end up getting 2 forced fumbles, although they only did recover one of them.
Yeah.
So they were 4th in turnover difference for the week in the rankings, but that's only because they weren't able to obtain that last fumble that they did cause. So they had Tanner with the sack,
Wow.
the middle linebacker Tanner. So their linebacking crew looks like they're performing very well, up above their ratings. So you got Tanner with a sack, you got the middle linebacker Blair with the forced fumble, then that right outside linebacker Rucker, who I believe yours truly, or I think yours, there you go. Yep, Mr. JD, you did point him out as going to be having a great season this year, being a rookie as well. So Rucker also got a forced fumble. But that's what I have to say about that. So if it wasn't for the Werewolves allowing that game-winning touchdown pass,
Yeah.
who did that? Who got that game-winning pass on the Piranhas? Who was it? Who got that last?
It had to be Andre
Watson
Watson.
or Preston
It had to be Andre Watson, I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
Oh yeah, it was Watson.
That's their
It was
guy.
Watson.
It's their guy,
Yeah,
man.
it was Watson. Oh my goodness. Game-winning touchdown, right at not at the end, but it was the last score of the game. Yeah, it was at the end. That was the last play of the game.
Your time.
That was it.
Not only is your time up, but their time was up too. And at the end
Their time
of
was
regulation, they had 10 seconds left on the clock in overtime, and it's a regular season game. So if that would have ended, or he would have got tackled, that would have been a tie. And hey, who knows better than that than the Gators? Okay. So hey, Rhinos, your mic is muted. You forgot to unmute your mic. You forgot your mic,
saying,
bro.
Spence, 2 touchdowns that game too.
Yeah.
That was critical.
That was
2,
critical.
80
That was
yards.
critical. Yeah, that was huge for them.
Yeah,
And they
kept them in
actually took the
Kept them
lead,
in it.
the Werewolves. They took the lead there at
Yeah.
the end, and the Piranhas came back to tie it and then won it in overtime. So keep that in mind
Oh
as
my
well.
goodness.
3 touchdowns combined from
Overtime,
wide
man.
receivers.
Yeah.
10 seconds
That
left.
helps.
10
That
seconds
helps.
left in overtime.
Okay, and then the final team before we give our little recap. We're at 27 minutes now, so I'll try to do this as quickly as possible. I'll start the clock now. Boom, the clock has started and the graphic is up for the Wildcats. Oh my goodness, what to say about these Wildcats. Jeannie Ingram is kind of like Aladdin finding a lamp out in the middle of a desert and finding discouraged garbage and turning it into fucking something phenomenal. Jeannie Ingram is really turning a page for the Wildcats and is looking absolutely precise. He threw some touch passes that in this league with these great 99 quarterbacks, you see a lot of these bombs and throws go out of bounds and stretch the sidelines where you go, man, why is he whipping it that far? Because these guys are just overpowered, really strong 99 quarterbacks. And guess what? Jeannie Ingram might have the nicest touch on the ball besides Ron Simmons and Quincy Barnett, because Quincy Barnett had a phenomenal, really nice touch ball too this week. But hey, Jeannie Ingram may have one of the nicest touch balls in the league. He does finish with the 6th ranked passing offense, so they did struggle. The Cobras definitely did hold them down in the 4th quarter. They could not move the ball at all, but they ended up settling for 2 field goals, which ended up winning the game 30-24. But what the real story is that number 1 ranked rushing defense. They held the Cobras to a 44 yards in team total, which may be a CSFL record. I'm going to have to look into that, but I'm going to say it is a CSFL record for the lowest yards allowed in a game with only 44. Josh Stormin Norman came through with 2 big tackles and also 2 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. Also, he was all over Ron Simmons, draping all over him, and Ron is quick triggered and was able to get it out. But Joey Norman could have had a few pressures there. Also, with their great defensive line, the Wildcats are really bringing the pressure, and they finished with the 3rd best defense. And now they go on the they go actually back home and they host the Dragons, who, guess what? finished with the number 1 rushing defense. So that's really exciting to see the number 1 rushing defense versus the number 1 rushing offense. So that should be a big match. That should be a big match for these.
Don't let us down, boys. Don't let us down.
And they're both 1-0. So the Wildcats and the Dragons are both 1-0. So one of those teams are gonna go 2-0, which is very exciting. So that is it for the teams and our recap and post-game show. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed doing this and talking about the CSFL, the Canadian Simulation Football League. Thank you so much for you guys making the time for being here. And if you guys made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. And there will be lots more content to come. And we will see you this Friday for the Vipers versus the Blue Jays. That'll be a big one.
Some of you owners don't like what I'm saying. I challenge you. Straight up challenge. CSFL challenge. Get up on here and tell us what you think. If you don't agree.
Absolutely.
Other than that, my word is law.
Yeah, tell them how you really feel. Yeah.
Bye.
Hell yeah.